Hi everybody, this is Dr. Johnson, and this micro lecture will be on personal questions. What are you supposed to do as a nutrition counselor when your client continues to ask you personal questions? Some of those questions might be something such as, have you ever been heavy? Have you ever had an eating disorder? Who are you voting for in an election? Are you married? Do you have children? Are you a Christian? How do you eat? Some of these may feel a lot more personal than others, and some may even be more personal than those examples that I gave you. You need to decide as the nutrition counselor how comfortable you feel disclosing some of that information. It might be easy to help you build rapport by simply saying, I have no children, so I'm not sure what it's like for you to have to juggle that when you're at home. Or it could be, I do have children, so I can understand your viewpoint and where you're coming from in trying to manage your lifestyle and feed your kids. But other more personal questions, such as have you ever had an eating disorder, you may not want to disclose with your client. So it's nice to take a step back and try to understand the why from that client. Oftentimes, the question that they're asking is not about you, and they're really digging for something other than trying to gather information about the client or the counselor. So this is something, again, where you need to figure out your own personal comfort level on disclosing some of these personal questions in a counseling session. And then, of course, some are not appropriate, such as, do you ever fight with your husband or your significant other? So here's a basic format that you can follow when you are addressing when a client asks you some personal questions. So first, you need to figure out what you're willing to disclose. Some may not even feel comfortable that they are married or that they do have children, and then others may feel very comfortable disclosing that information or even disclosing the information about, yeah, I previously did have an eating disorder. However, we do want to make sure that that is not going to impact the client based off of how we respond. So you really want to try to avoid you really want to avoid why questions. So ask them, why do you want to know? But you do want to understand the why behind that client's question, right? So there's some strategies that we can be talking about there. So respond to what matters to the client. So if the client is asking you, have you previously had an eating disorder? You don't want to come back and say, why do you ask? You may offer, what would knowing if I had a previous eating disorder would be helpful to you? Briefly disclose any of that information that you do feel comfortable with. So maybe once you kind of dig a little bit deeper to understand why that client is asking you if you've previously had an eating disorder, then you can decide if it's comfortable for you to disclose, yes or no, I haven't previously had an eating disorder. And then always redirect the conversation back to the content of the session. A really good example of this is if they ask you what your political views are, you can simply say, that's not the purpose of this particular counseling session, so I would prefer not to talk about my political preferences. So I want you to pause and kind of understand how might you respond to this question if a client asked you, how much do you weigh? What would your response be as the counselor? Just an example, you might say, what do you hope my answer will do for you? So I didn't say, why do you want to know how much I weigh? But rather, I'm trying to understand the why by stating, what do you hope my answer will do for you? So in summary, when a client is asking you personal information, we need to understand that it's not about you as the counselor. We want to understand the why, but not simply ask them why. And then if necessary, we need to redirect the session.